Shattered Pieces by Orpheus Kidwell, Chapter 3. Time is a fickle thing. When we notice it, it moves so slowly as if to bore us. When we give it no mind, however, it tends to speed up behind our backs. What's in the here and now seems so eternal, but it isn't always the case. We found that out the hard way, unfortunately. You're lying to me, Nissan. She wouldn't do that. Members of the White Fang, both loyal to Adam and Naruto's family, could hear the argument from the two leaders' office. It wasn't as if the room was soundproofed, but the combination of Naruto's loud voice and the dead quiet of everyone in the dining hall just outside it was easy to make it out. Whatever Adam said couldn't be made out, but Naruto continued, "No, Nissan wouldn't just leave. You're lying. Stop it." Inside the office itself, Adam wore a cold mask of indifference. It was a stark difference to Naruto, who was raged with anger and barely holding back tears. She didn't even tell me goodbye," he muttered, looking at the ground, the heat gone from his voice. Tears began to fall slowly to the floor. "Nissan." Adam's features softened and he moved closer to the boy, laying a hand on his shoulder. "Naruto, I know how you're feeling. Believe me, I do. Don't worry, I'll bring her back somehow. I'll get her back." The blonde looked up at the redhead, seeing the determination behind his eyes before nodding, wiping his tears away. He smiled. "Thank you, Nissan. I'm sorry for yelling at you," Adam chuckled, ruffling the boy's spiky hair. "Don't worry so much about it, Naruto. I want you to take a break, though. Despite how I'm feeling, I think you might take this worse than me, given your condition. With that in mind, I'd like you to spend a few days collecting yourself." The blonde looked as if he was going to argue, but stayed silent and bowed his head slightly before leaving. As he left the office, he noticed that everyone was looking at him, smiling, mostly for show. He looked back. "Sorry about that, everyone. Please don't mind me." With that said, he walked down a hallway, intent on getting to his room. It had been 7 months since the mission that saw Hidan joining the White Fang as a member of Naruto's. Was it the retin that Adam called it? That sounded right. They passed so quickly that he didn't pay much attention to it. In that time, so much had happened, and yet so little that he had control of. As he opened the door, he noted that said man was sitting on the second bed that had been installed there by the scythe wielder himself. He then stood quickly, bowing to the blonde. "Lord Uzumaki, what's wrong?" he asked in a worried tone. Before Naruto could even answer, the man was upon him, checking the boy for any injuries. "Who do I need to sacrifice in your name? Just tell me, and your will shall be done." The blonde smiled at the man, somewhat used to his words by now. He was strange, but carried in his own way. "No, it's fine, Hidan. I don't want you to hurt Blake. She left the White Fang. It was on the last mission with Adam. She went AWOL, and it's upset me. But I'll be fine." Hidan seemed skeptical, but dropped the subject. "I was just thinking about how time seems to work against us, no matter what our goals are. And this is one of those times." The white-haired man nodded sagely. "Oh, do you agree? I'm actually very old, Lord Uzumaki. I know I don't look like it, but I was around before the Four Kingdoms ever existed." Naruto widened his eyes at that. He knew Hidan had an amazing healing factor, one that even outshined his own, but that was just ridiculous. "Did I impress Lord Uzumaki?" Hidan asked with a hopeful grin. When the blonde nodded, he was surprised to see the man gain a slight blush as he smirked. "I'm glad that Lord Uzumaki thinks so highly of me. Truly a strange man." "Naruto, can we come in?" He heard a voice that interrupted their conversation. Turning on the semblance that turned his eyes glassy as his all-seeing eye, he noted several people outside his door. "My room isn't that big. Y'all want to talk, right? Meet me in the dojo in 5 minutes." He called back, looking back at Hidan. He paused. "Your family now too, Hidan. You can come." The acolyte widened his eyes before nodding with a grin. The two stood as Naruto dusted off his clothes. 7 months was a long time, long enough for a change in wardrobe even. He had traded out the traditional minstrel clothing for something a bit more practical and inconspicuous. He now wore a long-sleeved and dark red shirt with armored plating from his shoulders and elbows, a blue spiral that closed in on itself emblazoned on the left breast of the shirt, a pair of baggy cargo pants, steel-toe boots, and fingerless gloves finished off the outfit. The now 14-year-old had even gained some height, though he was still somewhere close to the giant that was Hidan. "Let's go." He motioned to Hidan, who opened the door as the two left. This was something he needed to do. Adam was so insistent back then. After all, 5 months ago, Adam's office. "You wanted to see me, Nissan?" Naruto wondered curiously as he stepped into the familiar office of Adam Torres. They weren't alone, though. Blake was there too, as well as a member of both factions from the Fang. While it was true that everyone there was honest and wanted to fight, no resistance existed without their own factions. On one hand, you had the Loyalists, the members who joined under the leadership of Gira Belladonna, Sienna Khan, and Adam himself. Then there was the group that had somehow become known as the Clan, all the experiments from the various workshops that Dr. Orochimaru had set up with funding from the Shinidas Corporation. While there wasn't much in the way of tension, the Clan still did one thing that the Loyalists didn't approve of. They looked to him first and Adam second. Naruto noticed that Gurren was there to represent the clan and Ilya was representing the Loyalists. Given both were senior members and respected amongst both factions, she looked like any fair-skinned teenager, the same age as Blake. On her arms and legs, she had several spots that were somewhat darker than the rest of her skin, and wore her brown hair in a ponytail that curled at the end like a chameleon's tail. Grayish-blue eyes met his own cerulean ones with a small smile. As for clothing, she wore a sleeveless one-piece sweatsuit with short legs, exposing much of her arms and legs. The whole thing very dark in hue. On her feet were a pair of boots, and she wore a single black glove on her right hand. Yes, I'm glad you could come. I'm sure you've already roughly figured out why you're here, Naruto nodded. Good, then I don't really need to explain about that. While tensions are low, they have been slightly increasing whenever you go on missions. It's no fault of your own, mind you. Some of our more passionate members have had small skirmishes in the way of spars going a bit too far. Luckily, they've been separated before anything too dangerous happened. While nothing has come of it, I would like to stop anything from coming right here and now. After talking to both sides, I think I've come to a decision that will help us. Naruto tilted his head in curiosity. I'm happy to help if I can, Nissan. I don't know what I can do, though. I didn't even tell any of them to start following me, you know? All I wanted was to help other people that Orochimaru hurt, find a family they could talk to about things that we went through. This went way past anything I intended. As things so often do when you're involved, Adam remarked with a sigh before shaking his head. Regardless of that, my decision is rather simple. You see, the White Fang Prepper is set up like that of a kingdom's military. Sienna Khan is our general, as you might expect. Then there are four below him that oversee all the members in each kingdom, where the lieutenants. I'm lieutenant of the Valiant branch. I head the Valiant Corp and all surrounding branches that lie in the surrounding wastelands. It goes on, but I wouldn't bore you with that. What I will do is explain that I'd like to fix this problem by making the clan its own platoon of the Valiant Corps. There's certainly enough of you, and likely to be more we discover. Unfortunately, Naruto seemed to be confused, so Adam explained further. In essence, I'd like to give you the rank of captain and make you a proper leader on paper, since you already have enough support unofficially that it's become a potential problem. What that means is that while you'll still be part of this branch, you have the power to go on any mission you want and assign your members to missions yourself. With that power also comes with some responsibilities, but I'm sure you'll have Yami studying all the obligations anyways, so I'll have Blake give you the proper text when we're done here. The most important part is that if the clan is officially under you as their leader, it should ease any tensions. Of course, there may be a few faunists foolish enough to try and test your mettle as a superior officer in spars, but I'm sure Kurma and Hidan will just find it amusing. So it should pass very quickly. Naruto was silent a moment, soaking in everything he'd been told. So you want to give me an official rank that's just 1 degree of separation below yours and make the clan my subordinates? It comes with several rights and responsibilities, plus some power and authority. If we do this, you really think it'll keep the two groups from escalating further? Adam nodded. From what Ilya and Gurren have told me, they seem to agree. Naruto smiled and nodded. Well, if you think it'll help, sure, just call me Captain Naruto Uzumaki, he saluted with a small grin. Gurren chuckled at the exchange. Under normal circumstances, she might think of being led by a child was demeaning and an insult to her own personal strength. In this case, however, she'd be glad if she never had to prove her strength against Kurma again. That was the stuff of nightmares. Present, White Fang Training Grounds Dojo. While Naruto had referred to the meeting place as a dojo, that was more of a code name. In actuality, it was just a large training ground that just happened to be designated for sparring. Perhaps it was his Mysterlian heritage that made him call it that. It didn't matter very much right now, though. He had bigger problems to worry about. Hidan trailed behind the blonde as he made his way through the open space, hundreds of faunists watching his every move. This was the clan, a group of roughly 6 600 experiments of the late Dr. Orochimaru that were loyal to each other and somehow looked to a 14-year-old for guidance and leadership. When he finally found his way before them, the blonde smiled. Hello, everyone. You know, time is funny. From the look on their faces, that was not what they expected him to say. It can slow to a crawl or move faster than the blink of an eye, but the sad fact is that it's always moving forward. We can't stop it to appreciate what we have, and if we aren't careful, those things will just. He held his hands up, clamped it into a fist before it opened, slip away into the wind. Just the same, we can't turn back the dial. History is unfortunately set in stone and unchangeable by even the strongest among us. Even I, who can use any and every semblance I take from others. Even I can't change what's already happened. If I could do that, I would give up this family I have, the one thing that makes me the happiest in the world, to make sure none of you were taken to that lab. I can't. Just as I can't change that no matter how much I wish, I can't change what my Nissan decided to do. Everyone looked at the boy with bated breath, curious about his next words. The loyalists will probably name her a traitor to the cause and demand either her capture or execution, ignoring any and everything that she's done for them and the bonds they once had with her. We're better than that. Naruto narrowed his eyes. All the pent-up frustration that was left in regards to Blake's departure was obvious in his demeanor. The fury and sadness, the betrayal, it was all in his eyes. We are the clan, a family of those who have suffered at the hands of those who care not for the bonds we had. Blake left us, but that doesn't mean we will leave her. We aren't going to cut our bonds just because she wanted a different path in life, and we aren't going to cut our ties with the Fang and chase after her. We're better than that. What we are doing is going to change. Though I was complacent in my status and allowed us to stay here, but this has taught me something. Time doesn't wait for us, and we might lose each other at any moment. Starting from today, we're going to become a proper militia and hold true to our bonds. Starting today, the clan is going to come first, and we'll make sure none of us leave the world unannounced. Starting today, the clan will well and truly be a force to be reckoned with. The former experiments couldn't help but follow the rising enthusiasm Naruto exuded as his speech reached its climax and cheered. They weren't quite sure what he had planned, but between the charismatic Naruto, the unbeatable Kurama, and the genius Yami, there was nothing that their leader couldn't accomplish. They may have begun separate, but just as Naruto had unfined his three souls under a common banner, they were sure he would do the same for the clan. Nothing would stop them. 10 days later, the war room, as it was called, was a part of the base that wasn't often used. A large chamber with a single large table with maps of every part of both Vale and the immediate surroundings west of Remnant. The maps labeled known settlements, grimmer nests, abandoned tribe members, and military bases, and updated based on intelligence on the digital and holographic screens. Now, to say it wasn't used often wasn't quite right. It was used, just not for its purpose. Usually Yami would come in and study the maps rigorously, or Adam would come alone to plan new missions. Simply, it wasn't used as a collaborative amongst high-ranking officers to discuss the most important missions. That changed today with her arrival. This is quite the outfit you got here, Lieutenant. The title was dripping with so much sarcasm, Naruto wondered how she didn't choke on it. She had silky black hair that ran over one shoulder and covered one eye, the other shining a bright amber. Fair skin was shown abundantly thanks to her red dress, and it was barely even that. Crimson detached sleeves with gold designs running from wrist to forearm, with red nails though kept trimmed and pristine unlike his own claws. Her dress itself was slit on one side, showing her entire thigh, and had a hem that barely covered her genitals. The term mini dress didn't even begin to describe it. Finally, a pair of black heels with an ankle bracelet on her left leg completed the ensemble. This was Cinderfall, the new leader of the Villian Corps. He didn't understand it, but even Kurama had no wish to fight her. No, that was dishonest. He understood why. One of the interesting effects of his all-seeing eye was the ability to see everything about one's aura and power. He couldn't tell the exact shade of their aura, the volume, the density, the quality, and how you were channeling it. When he looked at Cinder, he was nearly blinded due to how vast and bright hers was. Unlike other days, Adam was wearing his mask inside the base. In fact, the loyalists had started wearing their mask inside the base ever since she and her people arrived. The clan, they wouldn't let her mask. The clan, they wouldn't let her make them scared. They would proudly show their faces just as they always had. Cinder wouldn't take their dignity from them. He made sure of it. As if noticing his thoughts, the woman turned from the 3D hologram of Remnant to him, curiosity aligned in her eye. "Oh, I don't think we've met, little one." Approaching the blonde, Naruto noticed that the other officers had bated breath as the woman who beat Adam approached him. She knelt until their eyes were level, but not one of the male faunas dared to try and catch a peek despite the opportunity. "And what's your name?" Naruto met her eyes, pride in himself, pride in Adam, and pride in his family, keeping him from acting any other way. "Captain Naruto Uzumaki, commanding officer of the White Fang Veil Corps Clan Division." Cinder seemed amused at the concept of someone young as him being ranked so highly as she patted his head, her one eye closing as she smiled. "Of course you are. This is grown-up time, so go on and play outside." Naruto felt himself growing angry at the way the woman disregarded him and his position. He would not allow his family to have no representation at this meeting. He found that he could feel Kurama growing more unstable than usual, and even Yami was exuding a cold sort of hatred. "Ow!" She quickly pulled her hand back as Naruto's body danced with sparks. His eyes changed in a way the others hadn't seen in some time, a deep purple. "I will not be disregarded as a child," Yami exclaimed in a cold voice that felt harsher than an Elysian winter. "I have been the chief strategist for far too long to allow some newcomer to think she understands the dynamics of our family to force me to leave." Tsuna looked at him with cold eyes before stepping back, her two bodyguards appearing just then, both looking at him. The first was a silver-haired boy with a black and gray shirt, armored sleeves, and black pants with a pair of boots on his feet. Dark eyes showed boredom at the prospect of fighting such a small kid. The other was a dark-skinned girl with mint green hair, cut in a bob cut with two strands extending past that in the shape of antenna down her back. She wore a forest green tube top with spaghetti straps that was little more than a glorified sports bra and a pair of matching Caprice leather chaps over those, and two guns holstered on the back of her waist in an X formation. "Tell the child to back down if you don't want him to be hurt," Cinder warned Adam, who seemed to be somewhere in between wanting to show Cinder how powerful his soldiers were and following the order. "Let him prove his worth in being here." Adam's response made Yami smile, even if only slightly, as he glared coldly at the two bodyguards, Mercury Black and Emerald Sustri. Cinder hummed in amusement before giving them the signal. The officers all stood along the wall, aware of how much damage this could cause. "While I wish it were not the case, Naruto will probably heal you two after our fight," Yami stated, confusing the three newcomers as they didn't know about the boy's condition. "Still, it doesn't mean I don't have to hold back, so at least there's that." Yami held out his hand as he opened the hammer space. A pair of short swords appeared in his hands. "Kurama might have bloodied you up as much as possible, but he's not the one who has to clean up, so I'll make this quick. Pay attention, Hidan," said Acolyte, who had been behind Naruto the whole time, nodded at Yami. "Fixing your form has been paramount, and this will showcase the difference between a berserker like Kurama and someone more refined like myself." "Of course, Lord Uzumaki." With that, Yami's form covered itself in lightning swords included. As he rushed forward, Mercury blocked the initial strike with his boots, surprising Yami by snapping their steel itself with the dust rounds he released upon kicking. Not one to be shocked so easily, Yami rolled under the next kick, releasing the swords as he kicked off from the ground, where his feet pushed from. A large spear of cement rose, which Mercury didn't quite dodge. Luckily, the armor over his sleeve was enough to keep him from being injured, but it was dented from the force behind it. While that happened, Yami was headed for Emerald, swiping with his claw for her face. Quickly backpedaling, she aimed her pistol at him and let loose. Glassy eyes showed him their paths, and he used precise bolts to knock each of them off course, only aiming for one that would hit him. As a side effect to using this ability, it opened his vision so that he could keep an eye on both, even though Emerald was in front and Mercury was behind him. As Mercury came for a roundhouse kick to the back of Yami's head, he moved forward, launching small bolts of his bioelectricity from his back to jolt the boy. Jumping back so they were both in front of him, his aura then glowed in icy blue as he used the dust infused in one of his gloves. Swiping with his claw, three large spikes of ice launched at Mercury, who was still recovering from the paralytic effect of his previous attack. Emerald widened her eyes and shot them, knocking them off course enough for Mercury to dodge them despite his sluggish movements. Focusing on the spikes, they weren't paying enough attention to the boy himself as he appeared behind the mint-haired girl with a steel rod in hand he had pulled from hammer space. It danced dangerously with the blue aura from his semblance, which he had finally named the First Spark. Focusing the semblance around a part of himself or an object he was touching, he could create a shell of lightning The cost was that, of course, he couldn't use the semblance on any other part of himself when he did. It was turning a support ability into complete offense at the cost of all the perks the support aspect offered. Emerald could only cry out as the rod slammed into the side of her head, shocked in both the literal and metaphorical sense into submission. With his teammate down and the effects of his own electrocution gone, Mercury looked at the boy with complete focus and there he thinked amusement, watching Yami's movements. The silver-haired teen rushed forward without the speed boost the first spark. There was no way he could keep up with a martial artist as skilled as him, so he transported the rod back to hammer space and channeled it to his legs, spinning around the bicycle kick that Mercury tried to hit him with. Violet eyes met black before they rushed at each other again. Mercury aimed a flurry of kicks at him, which Yami expertly dodged thanks to a combination of all-seeing eyes and first spark. Watching for any openings, he finally found one as his opponent overreached with one of his roundhouse kicks, slamming a palm into the boy. Yami coursed first spark into his palm and launched Mercury into one of the walls from the extra energy it added. He was out before he even left the ground. Turning to look at Cinder, she wore an amused smile. She wasn't looking at him like a child anymore, but like a toy you wanted and belonged to someone else, a toy you were going to steal before you didn't because you didn't like the person who owned it anyways. He filed that away for later as glassy Violet gave way to bright cerulean, not to watch as cinders slowly clapped. Well, I see that I certainly underrated you. I have no issue with a warrior as skilled as you being here. Please do stay. It should be interesting. Naruto ignored her and made his way to Emerald as she was closer, placing a hand on her back. He didn't care that Cinder was watching as the welt she sustained appeared on him before quickly healing. He was at Mercury's side doing the same thing by the time she came to. By the time she stood, he was already back in his original spot. He ran behind him with a grin on his lips. "What's with that stupid grin on your face?" Mercury asked the acolyte as he walked past, angry for letting a kid get the best of him. "Don't you see?" Hidan asked, getting the attention of Mercury, Emerald, and Cinder. "This is the power of Lord Uzumaki and the mercy. My Lord and Savior, the one true God of life. He punished you for your sins and brought you back to full health. Just as he taketh, he giveth back. The mercy of Lord Uzumaki is great, for he shall treat even those that would see him dead. He would heal a noble lord or a wretched vagrant equally, taking their pain unto himself, so that they might live unshackled by the bonds of injuries and illness. Praise be to his name. Praise be to the God of life." Unprepared for Hidan's way of talking, Cinder was surprised that the other officers acted as if this was nothing special. The man before her was surely mad, and she couldn't quite discern what his relation to the young warrior was. One thing was for certain, he was a human accepted by the White Fang, so he was surely powerful. Her lady would surely want to know about these two. "Shall we get to the matter of our plans then?" she asked, putting that thought aside for now, all in good time. End of chapter 3.